My children, let me tell you a story about a woman named Margaret Sullivan from Brooklyn, New York. I want you to see yourself in her story because what I did for her, I am doing for you right now in this very moment. Margaret was 53 years old when her world fell apart. She had been married to Daniel for 28 years. They had built a life together in a small brownstone in Park Slope, raised their daughter, Emma, in that home, filled it with laughter and Sunday dinners and the kind of ordinary love that makes a life sacred. Daniel was a good man, a faithful man. He worked as a school teacher, came home every evening at 5:30, kissed Margaret on the forehead before dinner. Simple, beautiful enough. Then, one Tuesday morning in March, Daniel didn't wake up. A heart attack in his sleep. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. I was there, my child. I was there when Margaret reached across the bed and found his hand cold. I was there when she called 911 with a voice that didn't sound like her own. I was there when she stood in her kitchen 3 days after the funeral, staring at his coffee mug, still sitting by the sink, and whispered into the silence, "Why?" I heard her. Every tear was counted. Every broken prayer was held. But Margaret's story doesn't end with Daniel's death. That was only the beginning of her wilderness season, the valley I would have to walk her through before she could see the mountaintop I had prepared for her. 6 months after Daniel died, Emma disappeared. Emma was 26 at the time, beautiful and bright and running from something Margaret couldn't name. She had always been restless, always searching for something beyond the boundaries of the life she'd been given. After her father died, that restlessness turned into recklessness. She started staying out all night, coming home with eyes that looked hollow. She stopped going to the job she'd had at the publishing house. She stopped answering Margaret's questions. Then one morning, Margaret woke up and Emma was gone. No note, no explanation, just an empty bedroom and a mother's heart breaking all over again. Margaret searched everywhere. She called Emma's friends, drove to places Emma used to go, filed a missing person report. The police said Emma was an adult. She had the right to leave. But a mother doesn't stop being a mother just because her child turns 18 or 26 or 50. The 8 doesn't recognize age. 3 months passed, 6 months, a year. Emma sent one text message, "I'm okay. Don't look for me." That was all. Margaret stopped sleeping through the night. She would sit by the window in Emma's old bedroom, watching the street below, hoping to see her daughter's face. She stopped going to church because she couldn't bear the questions, the pity in people's eyes. She stopped cooking real meals because who was she cooking for? She stopped doing most things that used to make her feel human. I watched her fade, my precious child. I watched her go through the motions of living while her spirit withered. She went to work at the hospital where she'd been a nurse for 30 years. Came home to an empty house, ate standing over the sink, fell asleep on the couch with the television on just so she wouldn't have to face the silence. The neighbors started to worry. Her sister called every day, but Margaret let it go to voicemail. Her friends from church tried to visit, but she stopped answering the door. She was drowning in grief, in guilt, in questions that had no answers. "What did I do wrong?" she would ask me in the darkness. "Why did you take my husband? Why did you let my daughter leave? What kind of God are you?" I heard every word, my beloved, and I never left her side. It was a Tuesday night, 3 years after Daniel died, 2 years after Emma disappeared, when Margaret found herself sitting on her bedroom floor at 2 o'clock in the morning, holding one of Daniel's old shirts, weeping so hard she could barely breathe. She had reached the bottom, that place where you either surrender or you stop existing in any meaningful way. That's when she picked up her phone, not to call anyone, not even with a plan, just looking for something, anything to fill the void. She opened YouTube, searching for nothing in particular. And that's when my Holy Spirit moved. The algorithm, that combination of mathematics and mystery, brought her to a video. The title said, "God says, your answer has arrived." Margaret almost scrolled past it. She had stopped believing in answers, but something made her pause. Something she would later recognize as my voice, though in that moment, it just felt like a whisper in her spirit. "Watch this." She pressed play. And my child, I began to speak to her through those words, not audibly, but deeper than hearing. I spoke to the broken places inside her that no human voice could reach. I reminded her that she was seen, that she was loved, that her pain had not escaped my notice. I told her about Joseph in the pit, about the prison that was actually preparation, about the suddenly that comes after the season of waiting. Margaret watched that video 3 times that night. Then she watched another and another. She subscribed to the channel, God Tells You. And for the first time in years, she felt something stir in her chest. Not quite hope yet, not quite faith, but something. A crack in the darkness where light might enter. She started watching every morning before work, every night before bed. The words became like water to a woman dying of thirst. She began to pray again. Awkward prayers, honest prayers. I don't know if you're really listening, but I'm here. I'm still here. And I was listening, my precious child. I was always listening. Something began to shift in Margaret. Slowly at first, she started sleeping a little better. The weight on her chest began to lift degree by degree. She started cooking real meals again. She started answering her sister's calls. She even went back to church one Sunday, slipping into the back pew, letting the familiar hymns wash over her like a balm. 6 months after finding that first video, Margaret did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She laughed. Really laughed. One of the nurses at work told a silly joke, and Margaret felt laughter bubble up from somewhere deep inside her. And for just a moment, she remembered what joy felt like. That's when I began to move more visibly in her life. Margaret had a coworker named Robert. He was a widower, had lost his wife to cancer 4 years earlier. They had known each other casually for years. But after Margaret started coming back to life, they began having coffee together during breaks, just talking. Just 2 people who understood what loss felt like, who didn't need to pretend everything was fine. One evening, Robert asked Margaret to dinner. Nothing fancy, just the Italian place down the street from the hospital. Margaret almost said no. It felt like a betrayal of Daniel, like she was giving up on Emma. But something in her spirit, something gentle and patient that she was learning to recognize as my voice, whispered, "It's okay to live again." She said yes. Dinner turned into more dinners. Friendship turned into something deeper. Robert was kind and patient. He didn't try to fix her or rush her. He just walked beside her. And slowly Margaret began to believe that maybe her story wasn't over. Maybe there were still chapters to be written. They were married 2 years later. A small ceremony in the church where Margaret had grown up. It wasn't the same as what she'd had with Daniel. It wasn't meant to be. But it was good. It was real. It was my gift to a woman who had learned that love doesn't run out just because you've loved before. But my child, I wasn't done writing Margaret's story. The best was yet to come. It was a Saturday afternoon in October, 5 years after Emma had sent that single text message. Margaret was in her kitchen, the kitchen in the new home she shared with Robert in Queens, making apple pie, humming along to the radio when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Mom. Margaret's hand started shaking, so hard she had to sit down. Emma. Her daughter's voice was different, older, steadier, but unmistakably hers. Mom, I'm in Brooklyn at a coffee shop on 7th Avenue. Can you come, please? Margaret was in the car 5 minutes later. Robert driving because her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The coffee shop was 20 minutes away, but it felt like hours. She kept praying under her breath. Please let this be real. Please let her be okay. Emma was sitting in the corner booth when Margaret walked in. She was 31 now, thinner than Margaret remembered, but there was something different in her eyes, something clear, something healed. They stared at each other for a moment that stretched into eternity. Then Emma stood up and Margaret saw the little girl behind her, maybe 4 years old, with Emma's dark curls and eyes that looked exactly like Daniel's. "Mom," Emma said, her voice breaking. "This is Grace, your granddaughter. I have so much to tell you." They talked for 4 hours in that coffee shop. Emma told her mother about the spiral she'd fallen into after Daniel died, about the drugs, about the abusive boyfriend, about hitting rock bottom in Los Angeles and ending up in a shelter. She told her about finding out she was pregnant and deciding that this baby was her reason to fight. She told her about getting clean, getting help, rebuilding her life piece by piece. And then Emma said something that made Margaret weep. "I found this YouTube channel, Mom. About God, about hope. It sounds crazy, but the words in those videos, they saved my life. They made me believe I could come home. They made me believe you might forgive me." The channel was called God Tells You. The same channel that had begun to heal Margaret 3 years earlier was the same channel that had brought Emma back from the edge. I had been working in both of them, my beloved child, weaving their stories together in ways neither of them could see, bringing them both to the point where reconciliation was possible. Margaret reached across the table and took her daughter's hands. "There's nothing to forgive," she whispered. "You're here. You're alive. That's all that matters." Little Grace looked up at her grandmother with those Daniel eyes and said, "Are you my grandma?" Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your grandma. That was 3 years ago, my precious child. Let me tell you where Margaret is now. She is 61 years old. She lives in a house filled with laughter again. Emma and Grace live in an apartment 10 minutes away, and they have dinner together every Sunday. Grace calls her Nana and Robert Papa, and she's teaching them both how to play her favorite game. Emma has been sober for 8 years. She works as a counselor now, helping other women who are fighting the same battles she fought. She leads a small group at church for mothers who have lost touch with their children. Margaret still watches the God Tells You channel every morning. She comments sometimes, telling pieces of her story, hoping to encourage others the way she was encouraged. She volunteers at a grief support group at church, sitting with widows and widowers, holding their hands, telling them that life can surprise you, that God's timing is not our timing, that the end of one chapter is not the end of the whole story. Robert and Margaret celebrated their 4th anniversary last month. They took a trip to the beach, walked along the shore, holding hands, watched the sunset, and Margaret thought about Daniel and knew he would be happy for her. Love doesn't diminish love. It multiplies it. But here's what I want you to understand, my beloved child. Margaret's story is not special because of its ending. It's special because of what happened in the middle, in the waiting, in the wilderness. It's special because she kept breathing when breathing hurt. Because she kept waking up when waking up felt pointless. Because she reached out for help when her pride wanted her to suffer alone. And most of all, it's special because she let me into her pain. She didn't understand my timing. She didn't see my plan. But she kept showing up, kept watching those videos, kept whispering those broken prayers. And I met her in every single one of them. Margaret's story is not unique, my child. It is one thread in a tapestry of miracles I am weaving every single day through this channel, through these messages of hope. There is James in Texas, a veteran who came home from war but couldn't find peace. PTSD had stolen his sleep, his joy, his sense of purpose. His marriage was crumbling. His children were afraid of his angry outbursts. He found these videos at 3 o'clock in the morning during another sleepless night, and my words began to heal what medicine couldn't touch. Today, James leads a support group for veterans at his church. His wife tells people he's the man she married again. His children climb into his lap without hesitation. The breakthrough came just as I promised it would. There is Linda in Florida, 67 years old, who lost everything in a hurricane. Her home, her savings, her sense of security. She lived in a FEMA trailer for 18 months, wondering if she would ever feel safe again. She watched these messages on her phone, the only possession she had left. And I spoke hope into her devastation. Within 2 years, she had a new home, better than the one she lost. But more than that, she had a testimony that encouraged dozens of other disaster survivors. She became my voice to people walking through the same storm she had survived. There is Michael in Ohio, a father of 3, who lost his job at 55 and thought he was too old to start over. The rejection letters piled up. The savings dwindled. The fear grew, but he kept watching, kept believing, kept declaring the promises I spoke through these videos. 6 months later, he started a business that now employs 12 people. His income doubled. His faith tripled. He sends messages to the channel regularly thanking me for not letting him give up. And there is Sarah in Georgia, a single mother whose teenage son was trapped in addiction. She prayed for 7 years, watching him spiral, feeling helpless and heartbroken. She found these videos and learned to surrender her son into my hands instead of trying to control his choices. 3 months after she released him to me, he checked himself into rehab. Today, he's 2 years sober, working, restored. Sarah says it wasn't until she stopped trying to save him herself that I could do what only I could do. These are my children, beloved. These are the testimonies of those who dared to believe when belief felt foolish, who dared to hope when hope felt impossible, who dared to trust when trust had been broken too many times to count. Now, I want to tell you something that's going to change your perspective on everything you're going through right now. Are you ready? You are Margaret. Not literally, of course. Your details are different. Your losses have different names. Your pain has different shapes, but the essence is the same. You are in a season that feels like ending when it's actually preparation. You are in a valley that feels like abandonment when it's actually where I do my deepest work. I see you, my child. I see the smile you wear when your heart is breaking. I see the way you encourage others while your own soul feels empty. I see the prayers you pray in the middle of the night when everyone else is asleep. I see the tears you cry in the shower so no one will hear. I see the way you keep going even when you don't know why you're going anymore. And I am telling you the same thing I told Margaret in that moment when she felt most alone. I have not forgotten you. Your name is written on the palms of my hands. Your face is constantly before me. Your breakthrough is being prepared even while you read these words. Do you know why I brought Margaret's story to you today? Because you needed to see that restoration is real, that second chances exist, that I am still in the business of turning mourning into dancing, ashes into beauty, despair into hope. You might be in the season where you've lost someone you love. You might be in the season where your child has walked away. You might be in the season where your dreams have died, your marriage has ended, your health has failed, your finances have collapsed. You might be in the season where you've forgotten what hope feels like, where faith seems like a word other people use, where tomorrow looks exactly like today, and you can't bear the thought of more of the same. But my beloved child, seasons change, winters end. Seeds that die in the ground come back to life in the spring. And I am the God of resurrection. I specialize in bringing life out of death, joy out of sorrow, purpose out of pain. Let me tell you what I see happening in your life right now. Within the next 72 hours, you are going to receive a sign that I am moving. It might be subtle, a phone call, a conversation, a moment of unexpected peace. Don't dismiss it. That's me reaching through the veil to remind you that I am actively working on your behalf. Before you go to sleep tonight, I want you to thank me for what I am about to do. Not what I've done, though there is much to be grateful for there, too, but what I am about to do. Thank me for the breakthrough that's coming. Thank me for the miracle that's manifesting. Thank me for the restoration that's already in motion. Within the next 7 days, you are going to have a moment of clarity. Something that has been confusing you. Something that has kept you up at night. Something that has felt impossibly complicated. It's going to become simple. You're going to see it from my perspective. And when you do, peace is going to flood your heart. And within the next 30 days, you are going to see a tangible answer to a prayer you've been praying. It might not look exactly like you pictured it. My answers rarely do, but it will be unmistakably for me, unmistakably good, unmistakably evidence that I am your father and I take care of my children. Now, I want to pause here and ask something of you. This channel, God tells you, exists to bring these messages of hope to souls who are drowning in despair. If this message has touched your heart, if you felt my presence as you've read these words, would you support this work? Use the Super Thanks button below to give what you can. Your support allows these life-changing messages to reach others who are exactly where Margaret was 3 years ago, sitting on a bedroom floor at 2 in the morning, wondering if anyone sees their pain. As you give, you participate in the work of restoration, and that blessing will return to you multiplied. But whether you give or not, I want you to know this. I see you. I love you. And I am not done writing your story. Now, let's pray together. Don't just read these words. Pray them from the depths of your heart. Let them become your declaration, your surrender, your yes to everything I want to do in your life.